Okay, so now we're listening to Grant Cardone's audiobook on Sell or Be Sold. Oh no, not Sell or Be Sold. Closing Survival Guide.
It's quite frightening, really, because they said gas and electric's going up another 20%.
Right.
No, it's not affecting me now, but in June, this place is going to be a fortune to run.
Really?
Like, I won't have a mortgage, and fucking gas and electric will be nearly cracking on for half a mortgage. It's fucking ridiculous.
We'll be able to figure it out when we get there.
Oh yeah, well, like I say, me and Stevie Mac are on the same fixed thing, so we're hoping we'll swap, like we always have done, onto one that's going to kill us, but hopefully, because everybody fuckers same, aren't they? It can't carry on like this, no cunt can afford it. Your average gas and electric bill now, for an average house, is 350 quid a month.
Well, we'll have to figure it out, won't we?
Reality is, if you can't close others on your ideas, your dreams, your proposition, your offers, you do lose. Now, this is harsh, cold, stark reality. But the reality is, when you don't close the deal, you lose the deal. Would you agree? When you don't close on your proposal, you end up giving up something and closing on someone else's proposal, at which point you probably lose something. There is no cost to a salesperson, or for that matter, any person who wants to do big things. There's no cost greater than the cost of the lost close. None. But close the deal, get the agreement, and have the parties exchange things of value, and this is the point where trumpets will blow, parades fill the streets, and the heavens part. I guess I got a little carried away there with my rejoicing, but that is what it feels like to complete an agreement. And everyone listening to this knows when you close a deal, you get excited, like, oh wow, man, I closed something. It's almost like something magical happened. Everyone gets jacked, everyone feels invincible, if just for a moment. Knowing exactly what accomplished the close is necessary, vitally necessary, in order that you are able to repeat this action and then be able to predict future results. This knowing is the single most important thing to an individual and an entire company. It is that thing, knowing, that will catapult you and your company into a whole new stratosphere where you're able to order the parades, order the dancing girls, and the bands because you're able to predict the close. See, whole companies try to control their future with budgets only because they don't know what they're going to close. If they knew they could close future business, expand their business, they wouldn't be so budget driven. When you can do that, you are now in a position to make your dreams come true. Your business will be prosperous. Your individual finances will be prosperous, and you start to create entire economies, at least for yourself. See, the true pro closer is that individual that has taken the time to observe what is happening, recording his or her experiences. They take the time to practice, drill, and rehearse before they ever even enter the arena of closing a deal. They now know, K-N-O-W, how to close. They even know where the whole situation will go prior to being in it. The ability to predict that I wrote about in Sell to Survive. This individual practices what they need to say in order to get the close. This person knows why someone closes and knows why they don't close. This person will be prepared for every possibility. The true pro closer will have complete certainty about their field, their profession, be able to predict their income, and they will absolutely love their job. With this certainty comes confidence, and with this confidence comes more closes, and more closes creates momentum for more of everything. The individual starts to glow and vibrate at a frequency that others find compelling, attractive, and irresistible, and they keep saying yes to this person. Now, I know you think that's overstated when I say that, but the reality is I did this for myself as a young, rookie, unaware, no knowledge and no wisdom salesperson. When I, for a short period of time, dedicated myself to learning everything possible about the close, my confidence increased. My results got better. I started to get momentum, and momentum breeds momentum, and success breeds more success. And literally, I started to glow and vibrate at a frequency that others found compelling and attractive and irresistible. And I started getting lucky, and I started getting more yeses, and people liked me, and that's what I mean by the glow and the vibration. People start saying yes to people that are winning. See, the individual becomes more able and more successful at making things happen due to his knowing, K-N-O-W-I-N-G. He knows or she knows the game and is able to quickly adjust when necessary and ultimately correctly control the outcome. He or she then becomes more valuable to everyone around them. Peers, the executives, the corporation, the industry, and the individual that you're making the proposal to. The prevailing lack of commitment to practice, I'm talking about what's going on in the marketplace now. This prevailing lack of commitment to practice, to drill and rehearse this skill of closing as a learned skill is the single biggest missing ingredient in getting people to a point where they can have what they want in their life. I'm gonna say that again. The prevailing lack of commitment and dedication to practicing, to drilling, preparation, to rehearsing the skill of closing as a learned skill is the single biggest missing ingredient in getting people in a position that they can have what they want in life. Let's face it, there's no shortage of dreamers on this planet. There are only a shortage of people doing whatever it takes to make those dreams come true. The lack of practicing produces a lack of knowing. And a lack of knowing is replaced with hoping, wishing, praying, and ultimately more disappointments. If you find yourself doing any of this, hoping, wishing, praying, begging,
Brilliant.
pleading, or
That
being disappointed,
1400 came
it's
off.
because you don't know
Brilliant.
something.
So
And it's a
that's
critical
the
area of getting
way I
others
do
to
it.
support
So
you. And,
I was
close,
wanting
we're
it to
talking
be
about, it is
paid
a
off
critical
around
area
my
of getting
birthday,
others to
but it
support you
won't
and
be
close
because
and get
it's
behind you and close. A lack of no will result in a
March,
lifetime of
April,
no's.
May,
There's a
and
saying,
I'm paying
knowledge
£1,000 a
always
month.
desires
Mm.
an increase.
So it's £3
Desire
grand,
demands
or
more of you.
5.
Knowledge
Right,
So
okay.
I'll have to give them
demands more
another
knowledge.
probably
The winner
700
craves
quid one.
knowledge.
So
The winner craves solutions
£2
so that he or she can
divided by
better
3.
control the outcome of their life and reduce the chance of no, N-O, by having more no, K-N-O-W. Ability
to give them
determines stability.
660 quid a month more.
To make
It
it.
is crucial
Yeah,
that you
but
develop
I'm
the
not going to
ability for your
change my
prospect
direct
to
debit.
positive
No.
I'm
decision
just going
for
to
your offer.
do
And
it
they're
that
gonna
way.
terminate. They're
Okay.
tired of look,
So I
think,
know
to talk
now
over,
I
to
can
wonder
do it
about
from my
it, pray,
phone.
question,
Mm.
worry,
So when my
stall, and
mortgage
object.
comes out, I'll just
The
give them
degree
another
to which you get in
650
exchange
quid.
for something
Right, yeah,
agreed
yeah.
upon by
Brilliant.
itself determines your
Absolutely
stability
wipe me
and
out.
productivity as a deal maker. And
Well,
ultimately, your
only
value
for a bit.
I'm gonna say that again. The
Then,
degree
like
to
I
which
said,
you can get in
Then you get it
exchange
completely
for
free.
some agreed upon valuable
But then
by
that's my
itself
going up
determines your
front.
stability
Anyway.
and productivity as a
Don't
deal
think
maker.
about
And
that.
That can't be
ultimately,
helped.
your
It's for
value in the
everyone.
marketplace.
So,
You understand what I'm saying here? To the
but it's
degree
there
that
in
you
black
are
and
able to
white.
actually
Yeah.
get in
It's
exchange for some
crumbling
agreed upon
down
value
now.
Yeah,
by itself
yeah.
determines the stability
It
of
ain't
your
really.
household
Well, it is a
finances.
problem.
It
Even if I
determines
lost
the
my job, it is a
productivity of you
problem.
as a deal maker,
Because
and
I don't have
ultimately
any
determines
savings.
your value in
But
the
that'll
marketplace.
come.
But
Those who can close
we're
love
on
life,
definitely
and
the
those who
right
cannot
path
close
now.
Yeah.
will dread it. Those who can sell their ideas and their dreams and their products and close others will get
Never
whatever they
thought
want
that
because
day
they're
had
going to
come
get
when I
in
could
exchange
see
for
that.
them
Yeah,
regardless of
no,
what they
it's
represent.
amazing.
It wouldn't matter what
Especially
you're
when
selling.
Jan
You're
fucked
selling
off
music,
and
advertising,
raised
you're
in the
selling
shit.
ideas,
Yeah,
concepts,
yeah.
dreams. It doesn't matter. You're selling food products or
So,
consumables,
can
refrigerators,
you
or
talk?
insurance. It doesn't
Not
matter.
really, Dad.
To the
I've
degree
been doing it like that.
control that process
15.
determines what you get
15
in your
minutes.
life. Those who know how to get the close, know what to say, know how to handle the objections, know K-N-O-W, how to stay in the deal, know enough different strategies to withstand even the toughest of prospects, will close deals and will be able to predict their incomes and will be able to predict their future successes. These people that are able to do this are the most valuable people to the company, to the industry, and even entire economies. These are the closers. These are the people that make things happen. There's a rule about being able to predict your income that goes like this. If you cannot predict your income, there's something your ability determines stability. It is crucial that you develop the ability to bring your prospect to a positive decision for your offer and thereby terminate their desire to look, to think, to talk it over, to wonder about it, pray, question, worry, stall, and object. The degree to which you get in exchange for something agreed upon by itself determines your stability and productivity as a deal maker and ultimately your value in the marketplace. I'm going to say that again. The degree to which you can get in exchange for some agreed upon valuable by itself determines your stability and productivity as a deal maker and ultimately your value in the marketplace. You understand what I'm saying here? To the degree that you are able to actually get in exchange for some agreed upon valuable, this by itself determines the stability of you, your household, your finances. It determines the productivity of you as a deal maker and ultimately determines your value in the marketplace. Those who can close love life, and those who cannot close will dread it. Those who can sell their ideas and their dreams and their products and close others will get whatever they want in life because they're able to get people to exchange with them regardless of what they're representing. It wouldn't matter what you're selling. You're selling music, advertising, you're selling ideas, concepts, dreams. It doesn't matter. You're selling food products or consumables, refrigerators or insurance. It doesn't matter. To the degree that you're able to sell and control that process determines what you get in your own life. Those who know how to get the close, know what to say, know how to handle the objections, know K-N-O-W, how to stay in the deal, know enough different strategies to withstand even the toughest of prospects, will close deals and will be able to predict their incomes and will be able to predict their future successes. These people that are able to do this are the most valuable people to the company, to the industry, and even entire economies. These are the closers. These are the people that make things happen. There's a rule about being able to predict your income that goes like this. If you cannot predict your income, there's something you're short on knowing. Either you, number one, don't know what you want, or number two, you know what you want, but you don't know how to get it, or number three, both. Okay? So there's three things. You don't know what you want. Number two, you know what you want, but don't know how to go get it, or both. Anytime I'm having trouble with what I want, I look at what I don't know, and hopefully I clear it up. The longer I take to clear it up, the longer I suffer. Or I look at number two. Okay, I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it. Maybe that's it. Do I really want it? Maybe I don't really want it. See, most of the time in my case, I do really want it. There's just something I don't know in order to actually achieve it. See, that's number two. I know what I want, but I don't know how to go get it. Anytime I'm having trouble getting what I want, I look at what I don't know and clear it up. And the longer it takes me to look at what I don't know, the longer I'm going to suffer. Or I look at, hey, do I really want this? Do I really want this thing? Yeah, well, most of the time in my case, I do really want it. And I believe in most of the time in your world, you want what you're going after. There's just something you don't know in order to achieve it. So what do? What should you do? Get busy learning everything you can about whatever it is. You know what that means? That means you don't listen to this program one time. Learn everything there is. Trust me, you're missing points right now. If you listen to it a second time, a third time, a fourth time, you're going to hear things that I'm saying that are going to be more meaningful to you. Add knowledge to desire, like wood to a fire, and sooner or later, you will achieve your dreams. Most of the people I work with in my seminars, they have the desire. There's no shortage of desire. They want it, but man, they're short on correct knowledge. So that's what we have to fix here. Learning from experience is expensive. After graduating from college, I took on a full-time sales position. When I think I had first heard the term close the deal, I knew nothing about selling and certainly nothing about closing a deal. They just don't teach those things in school. I spent 17 years in school and never heard the term close the deal. See, up to this point, no one had suggested that there were strategies, even in the sales business that I was in, no one had suggested there were strategies or actual processes for getting a deal to close so that I could actually get rewarded. They just kept calling it selling. It was pointed out to me that this thing called closing the deal was an actual step to be done in the sales process, rather than something that just happened as a result of selling. So I started listening to the people around me, the professionals, because those guys around me knew a lot more than I knew. I assumed that because they'd been around for a while, they knew what they were doing. A word of advice: don't assume others necessarily know how to sell, much less how to close. Just because they were there before you doesn't mean they know much. Most salespeople haven't developed a true understanding about what it really takes to close deals consistently, much less how to exactly control the process and the outcome. See, most salespeople, even very, very seasoned salespeople, veterans, no offense to anyone listening, even seasoned salespeople haven't a clue about this area. It is not surprising because most have never invested the time and energy and resources in even learning the exact skills necessary to close. I assumed when I was new to selling that everyone around me knew what they were doing. It'd be like thinking, okay, the furniture was here before I was, so it knows more than I do. That's basically what I was doing. So I started paying close attention to these pieces of furniture around me, the people, and particularly paid a lot of attention to those with the most experience. While this proved somewhat helpful, and as much as I was impressed with some of what I saw, I now know that watching them and learning from them caused me to develop some very, very bad habits, much like the furniture in the room. You see, most of them, and now I'm being very kind, that we're using the expensive school of gaining knowledge. Remember we talked about that earlier? What's the expensive school? I do something, I have an experience, and I try to learn from it. Wrong way to learn anything. The expensive school of gaining knowledge is where you learned after the fact, as a result of the experience. This is the most popular, the most expensive, and the least successful way to learn. A Navy SEAL wouldn't do it, okay? An Army Ranger wouldn't do it. An actor and actress wouldn't do it, and a professional athlete does not learn that way. They prepare before game time. Learning from sheer experience is very, very, very expensive. It takes a long, incredibly long time to accumulate any real wisdom. And by the time you've developed accumulated real wisdom, you'll probably be out of time to use it. My coworkers learned while they were in a deal rather than learning before the deal. My coworkers were learning while they were in and after. They experienced losses as a result. They then tried to make the adjustments after the fact, and this just takes tremendous time to ever actually accumulate any real learning. The smarter way to go is to study, observe, and create experiences for yourself so you would learn how to handle a situation before it ever happened, beforehand. See, these people were learning after the fact rather than prior to the facts. These people were learning after the situation and trying to adjust when it's too late, rather than before the situation actually happened. Then they would make slight adjustments over time, usually over entire careers with very poor results. This is what most people do. This results in extreme transactional losses, not to mention the emotional losses that are accumulated day after day after day. I had spent 17 years up to this point seeking knowledge in my life. I'm talking about back when I was first selling. Believing at that time, the more I learned, the more I could earn. These people that I was surrounded by seemed to think exactly the opposite. I asked them if there were schools or books or something I could listen to or watch. Anything I could learn from. I was new and I was hungry. These people believed that the only way to learn was to be in the experience. They believed the only way to learn to close a deal was actually in the close, and this selling was a numbers game, and suggested to me that my results would be based on how many people I could get in front of, and it was not something you could actually control or predict. I agree that all success has something to do with the numbers game. It only makes sense. The more people I'm in front of, the more people I'm going to, do well with. But I also know there's a science to increasing results. Like if you're trying to go to the moon, it's not how many rockets you can build to get up there. At some point, you have to make some smart analysis to predict whether the rocket's going to even leave the ground. Otherwise, you're going to go busted broke in the rocket business. See, there exists a science, a body of knowledge for everything in life, everything you want to know about. Today, I know that there is a body of knowledge. There is nothing you can't know. Because if it was just a numbers game, for instance, in selling, if it was just a numbers game, then all success would be some random lottery, and there'd be no control at all. If anyone has ever told you there's something you can't know, trust me, you can know. Go do the research. Somebody's looked into the area. You can know and control as much as you want to, particularly around selling. We're not talking about the heavens parting here. We're talking about closing human beings on exchange. So I continued to watch these people as a young salesperson. They were the only people I could learn from, because I had no other resources for information. Let's face it, these people knew volumes more than I knew. But what I heard them say and what I observed from these professionals were the same type of attempts being repeated over and over, and most often with very poor results. In the middle of the negotiations, they'd say things like, hey, well, what would it take to do this? Or where do we need to be? Or what is your budget? And hey, by the way, if I could do this or that or whatever it is you want, would you actually buy the product? These people were repeating the same things over and over. It's a very limited range of closes. Certainly was not a science. Top guy doesn't always mean much. See, the most experienced and most respected person in this group had been at the same location for 12 years, had accumulated a tremendous amount of following from customers, and he had only achieved average results at best. While he acted quite confident and was more experienced than all the rest of us, he was still unable to predict his income. He was never quite sure of what his production would be, and his earnings were flat. Year over year, they were flat. They weren't going up. Though he bragged about his past production, and when it came to predicting his future production, he talked about it as though it were up to someone else, or it was up to the economy, or it was up to the manufacturer, or up to management. While he bragged about past production, he could not predict his future production. And this confused me. It didn't seem consistent with how I thought other people would create businesses. How could someone work at the same place for 12 years and still not be able to predict his income? I mean, basically, he was in the same place I was, and I was brand new. And if everyone else, the economy, the manufacturer, and luck were responsible for his results, where is the security in that job? How could I even ever plan a vacation or make an investment or buy a house if I couldn't plan? Lastly, and most amazing to me, is how could someone sell fewer products 144 months after they started a business, 12 years, than they did the first month they were in the business? See, this came up during the earlier period of confusion for me, because this top guy had experienced what he said he was having, man, I'm having a devastating month. It was killing me. See, he was complaining that he had sold. He told me, I sold one half the products this month in the 144th month of his career than he had the very first month. This freaked me out. It seemed mathematically impossible to have 12 years of experience, 12 years of knowledge, and 12 years of customers and sell fewer products. But it was happening, and it was happening to him. And I'm telling you, I was concerned it would happen to me one day. Didn't give me much, security about this business that I was in. I'm like, 12 years from now, I'm gonna have this experience. I don't want that. Here's the most respected salesperson in the group, and I knew if it could happen to him, then it could happen to me. Fear is an indicator that you don't know. I was telling a friend I graduated college with about this situation.
It's a good
about
one.
this guy, selling 144 months of business in the same industry, in the same location, in the same company, and then having this devastating month and not be able to predict his income. And I was telling him how disconcerting it was for me. He said to me, Grant, maybe these guys really don't know what they're doing, and you shouldn't be comparing yourself to them. Maybe these people lack commitment. Maybe they lack dedication. Maybe they don't have an education, and maybe they don't have the dreams that you have. Maybe you don't have to have these swings in production. And maybe these guys are the wrong people to model your career after. All that hit home for me. It was like when he was telling me this, I'm like, wow, maybe that's the problem. Maybe I'm comparing myself to the wrong people. I knew that the way they were approaching their futures was incorrect, and that I had to do something different. It wasn't the job. It wasn't selling. It wasn't the company. It wasn't the product. It was the mathematical formulas these people were using. I need to get in front of a lot of people. If I get in front of a lot of people and I don't know what I'm doing, I'll still be successful. That's an incorrect formula. You got to know what you're doing when you're with these. While these people, they called themselves professional salespeople, the truth is they knew very, very little about the subject. And in fact, were not even participating in controlling the outcome of this subject. None of them had any real formula or plan to work with, and only a limited amount of strategies that proved to be hit or miss at the best. See, success should be dependable. I had already had some success. It just wasn't consistent. I mean, I've been selling for a couple months now. I'm like, I hit or miss. It was like I could do good one month and not so good the next. But it wasn't consistent. It wasn't predictable, and it wasn't dependable. And if you can't predict it and you can't depend on it, how can you really call it success? It had been the scary kind of success that was fleeting and mysterious, that has no security involved. It wasn't because I wasn't trying. It was because I didn't have proven strategies in order to get people to agree with me and hit that critical survival exchange point I talked about earlier. Remember? Critical survival exchange point? When they give me something, I give them something. We have the close. Up to this point in my career, things were heading in the same direction as those around me. Furniture. There were no strategies. There was no control. There was no plan. And when those things are not present, there's no way to predict results. I would tell myself, all you can do, Grant, is work harder. See more people. Things will improve. Keep your chin up, man. Be positive. This was more hope than strategy, more effort than results. I was getting sick of hoping. And it's hard to work harder when you aren't getting results. And I know you know what I mean. When it came to closing the deal, when it came time to wrapping a deal, it was mostly heart beating, bum, 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 scared to death, fingers crossed, hoping and praying that people would like me enough to buy from me type of closing. I was experiencing more fear than my prospects were. And look, that is not a good sign. Note, fear is an indicator that you don't know something. If a lion comes to attack me and I know exactly how to kill the lion, I'm probably not going to fear it, particularly if I've been through it a number of times. Fear is an indicator that you don't know something, don't know how to do something, aren't in control of something. At this time in my career, I didn't know how to ask for the close. Look, I didn't know how to justify the close. I couldn't create urgency. I couldn't see the close. I couldn't handle objections. I wasn't able to persist. And the truth is, my results were at best based on fingers crossed luck. Then the blame phenomenon kicked in as a way to handle my disappointments. You ever had that experience? You're not getting any closes and the blame phenomenon kicks in? You start blaming your prospects. You start calling them unreasonable. I'm starting to say they're too difficult. Hey, they're not qualified when they were. They're a waste of my time. And when I got tired of blaming the prospect, when that didn't work anymore, I started blaming management. And when that didn't work, I started blaming the product. And when that didn't work, I started blaming the manufacturer. It's called the blame phenomenon. This is what every failing salesperson and dreamer goes through in order to justify their poor results. This is a rule. It was, and you should learn to live by this rule. It was, and it never is the customer management of the product. You need to knock off this blame phenomenon. It is a late response to someone that doesn't know what they're doing. My introduction to the science of the close. One day, a gentleman named Ray put a cassette tape, back in the days of cassette, a recorded program in my hand. He says, hey, listen to this guy. I got it at this convention I was at. I was given a recorded program of this guy who taught people how to professionally negotiate transactions. In this recording, the gentleman speaking was given examples to the audience of closing situations whereby the presenter had these logical and very intelligent responses for closing the negotiations. He even seemed to be able to direct and control the entire process so as to cause and direct the customer to a certain end result. My gosh, I was so excited when I heard this to know that there were actual techniques, strategies, and actual science for improving a person's ability to close a transaction. From the moment I was introduced to this recording, I became convinced that there was actually something I could learn that would actually influence my results and my income. As I started to work with the strategies that he shared on this recording, I became aware that these strategies were not limited to selling a product, but had as much to do with how to get my way in life by getting others to agree with me. I became aware that this thing called closing the sale, persuasion, negotiations, this area, while I had never learned anything in 17 years of an education about it, this was critical to my life. And what else is life really but getting others to agree with you so you can live life better? My hope and confidence shot through the roof, and I felt so alive for the first time in my career, so excited about my future for the very first time. I started practicing with the material every day, morning, noon, night. I didn't just listen to it, but I used it. I practiced it. I drilled it, and I rehearsed it. I listened to this one recording until it literally wore itself out, and I was no longer able to play it. I believed if I just listened and practiced enough, I could learn how to handle people and increase my results. I became a maniac on the subject of closing in my mid-20s, spending every moment reading and listening to everything I could possibly find on the subject. Since then, I have personally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in my quest to learn, in my research, my study, in travel expenses, supplies and seminars, audios, CDs, and videos, in order for me to get a better understanding of how to get more consistent results in my career and in my business and in my life. I was determined because I was so sick of the lack of results I had been getting. And you know, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll do almost anything to improve your condition. Ridicule is a good indicator. The people that worked with me laughed and ridiculed me for this newfound interest and quest and this dedication. But the laughter didn't last long because my production went out the roof almost immediately. I've come to believe that ridicule by others can often be a good indicator that you are doing something right. Their incomes didn't change. Mine went up. My results immediately showed up in both higher closing ratio, increased sales, and increased income. I became the leading salesperson for the first time, and I was outselling everyone else in numbers that had never been achieved by anyone in this group before. 1 month, I sold more products than the entire crew combined. I was pumped. I was in control, and I knew this had just begun. There is a direct relationship between the amount of effort someone is willing to put into their learning and their earnings. And let me tell you, ridicule is a good indicator of success. At first, everyone, including me, thought my results were just a fluke, some luck, some random happening that cannot be repeated and sustained. So I continued to study, and month after month, I continued to outsell everyone. I continued to even outsell myself month after month. Again, at first I was ridiculed, then I was resented, and later I was embraced to find out by others, hey man, what are you doing that made such a difference? What are you listening to? What are you learning? Can you teach me some of that? At first I was ridiculed, then I was resented, and later I was embraced. So know that you're going to probably go through that when you start really getting committed to your career and getting results in your career. Management started asking me to start working with and training the other salespeople on these newfound strategies, which I did because I believed the more I could teach other people, the more I would learn. By helping others, my understanding of the material and the subject matter took on a completely new level. Receiving information is one thing. You know, I'm reading this recording to you right now, right? You're receiving it. That's one thing. You teaching others this same information will bring you to a heightened understanding of this information that is beyond what words can describe. My belief is this: if you can't teach it, you really don't know it. And until you teach it, you won't know it for sure. The difference between have and have not. Today, after years of dedication and studying in this field, I can sit in on any deal, any product, and I can almost see what will happen before it even happens. It's a very weird, it's almost a surreal thing to be able to see what is happening in the negotiations, even before they're happening, and know exactly what the other side's going to do. It's weird. I can't even explain it, but it's something that comes with all levels of knowing. When you really know your game, you're able to predict moments into the future. A person will write me or call my office and ask me about a deal or negotiations they're involved in, and I can tell them almost immediately where it went wrong and what it would take to correct that deal. This type of understanding of the close is available to anyone that wants to improve and to anyone that's willing to dedicate the time. I have never, in the last 25 years, in my career and in my profession, I've never been unable to improve someone's results if they were willing to listen. I don't care if you think you're dumb, slow, can't read, can't write, whatever you think your problem is, I assure you, if you want to learn this area, I assure you, you can if you're willing to listen. It is a very, very simple skill to learn. It only requires a desire, it requires a commitment, and it requires a bit of study of the area. See in the close. Now this is a warning to you. You have to get this next point completely. If you can't or don't close the deal, then you lose. Take the C out of the word closed and you end up with lose. The truth is your family loses, your company loses, and if you believe completely in what you represent, then your customer or your prospect loses. I believe this with my heart today, and because I do, I will persist in a deal a great deal longer than the average person. He who can stay the longest will achieve the mostest. He who can stay the longest will achieve the mostest. That's a grantism. I personally have such a belief in what I represent, whatever it is I'm representing, that I believe to my core that everyone loses when I don't close that deal. This belief combined with an arsenal of technology. This is critical because you can believe in your product, but if you don't have the arsenal, you're done. This belief combined with an arsenal of technology is the fuel necessary so that you're able to persist until you actually get the close. There is only a slight difference between closing and losing. One letter to be exact. And that is more often than not the little bit it would take to close most of your deals. The C in close could stand for commitment. Commitment is defined as the state or instance of being emotionally compelled. This is the great shortage of our day. People who are committed and emotionally impelled to do whatever it takes to get something done. There's no shortage of money. The great shortage is people who are deeply committed and emotionally impelled to do whatever it takes in order to get something done. It could stand, the C, could stand for consistent, as consistency is absolutely necessary for you to achieve higher closing ratios. Consistent is defined as free from a variation or contradiction. Consistency is critical so as to provide you with a consistent set of choices and handlings to work with so that you're able to bring more harmony and a sense of stability and logic to your negotiations. So the C could stand for commitment, the C could stand for consistency. Hey, the C could stand for a can-do attitude. That attitude is absolutely vital to making things go right. Can-do is defined as characterized by an eager willingness to accept and meet challenges. Can-do, eager willingness to accept and meet challenges. If you don't bring this to the table, no one will ever support you in the closing arena, no matter how good your price, no matter your product, and no matter your proposal. Your negotiations will be filled with resistance, will be filled with their emotions. It will be filled with blame and bitterness. So you need to know that when you're negotiating with people, they're going to get, resistant. They're going to get emotional. They're going to start blaming. They're going to start stalling. People will become bitter. They'll become critical. You have to know this. You have to bring a can-do attitude to counter that to the table every time. The bottom line is, if you miss any of the C's, you will not close the deal, and you will only be left with lose. So the C's are what? Commitment. Deep commitment. Consistency. Able to use consistently this arsenal of techniques. And the third C is a can-do attitude. Harsh reality. The harsh reality is you are either closing or you are losing. There is no middle ground. There is no cost to the presenter greater than the loss of the deal. You need to know this. Like when you don't close, you lose. The presenter loses. There is no greater loss of the deal. None. It depletes your individual belief and confidence in yourself and in your product and idea when you lose a deal. When the salesperson or presenter or the proposal or the mediator is unable to close, he or she becomes visibly demoralized and over time starts to give up their quest with their attention stuck on accumulated losses rather than the confidence and competence that comes from winning. Losing the deal, any deal, has devastating results as it fuels uncertainty, insecurity, doubt, fear, loss of hope, and ultimately results in more lost sales. That is so important. Losing the deal has devastating results as it fuels uncertainty, insecurity, doubt, fear, loss of hope, and ultimately results in more lost sales. These losses become very expensive emotionally and financially to yourself and your company and should not just be taken so lightly or considered something that must happen as a result of being involved in a deal. People become too casual, too reasonable about this and incorrectly convince themselves that, oh, that's just the way it is. Look, there's no beneficiary to when you do not close a deal except maybe your competition. Certainly the prospect in no way benefits when you don't close them, as they are left to continue their efforts to acquire some product or service or solve some problem that they were hoping you could solve for them. Remember, no one wins when you don't close. No one. Don't be reasonable in this one fact, as it is vitally important to your future that you understand everyone ultimately loses when you fail to close them on your proposal. Get this point drilled in to your way of thinking, and you will make things happen like never before. Also, it is vital that you understand that selling involves more than just getting the buyer to like you or like your product or like your company. If that's all it took, 90% of all salespeople will be rich, but they're not. Successful, consistent, and dependable sales results require more than getting people to like you and your product,
Intense.
regardless of your likability. I know a lot of people that are likable. If you are unable to close the deal,
Not bad for unproductive characters. 15 words a minute. I'm getting less errors, and I'm just going to focus on that. Great. Thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, have a great day.